What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast. My name is Adam Vale. I'm a senior editor over at thekoalition.com, and I'm joined by editor-in-chief Richard Bailey Jr. What's up, Rich?
What's up, Adam? What's up, listeners and viewers?
And Throwdown's Carlos Romero. What's up, Carlos?
Yo, what's going on?
And what's going on is I fixed the audio issue. Sorry about that, people. There was an update, and I wasn't paying attention. I didn't think it was going to do much to my OBS, but it did a lot because it screwed up the audio. I came off very low. So if you guys noticed it, I'm sorry about that, but fixed it up. So now the audio level should be fine across everyone involved on the show. So that's great. And so we are here for The Walking Dead, Dead City, episode 2. Who's there? Who's there? That's the question. Who's there when it comes to viewers? Because it looks like no one's there. It's pretty sad. But then, and you know what? Let's just get into that before we do the rundown and quick little warning, people. If you haven't seen the episode, go watch it AMC Plus or an AMC Proper. It's airing. By the time that this is out, it'll already be aired, so you had your chance to watch it. But we will be going into spoiler territory and discussing what's going on and what we think is going to happen with this show. But before we jump into that, there was something we were discussing before we started recording, and it's just the interest within the community for this series. This is one of many spin-offs. And we assumed, at least on my end, I assumed that this would be one of the stronger ones. Not so much because of the new location in the city, but mainly because it's Negan. And that's our namesake. We love the character. This is time for that character to shine front and center. Yes, it's with Maggie, but it's he's there. He doesn't have to share the screen with all these other sub characters and all that. And it seems overall engagement has been low, like not just with our stuff, but just across the board. Like no one's really talking about this show. If I've gone to certain forums and some people are like, yeah, whatever. I'm looking forward to the Maggie. I'm looking to the Rick and Michonne, and I'm not sure about this one. I wonder what's the reason, because the characters, in my standpoint, the way I see it, are strong characters. These are strong characters. Now, if they would have decided to, I don't know, let's say go with let's just think of like some secondary lower tier character, like or let's say Ezekiel, for example. Let's say if they decided to do a spin-off from just the Commonwealth. It's like, all right, just Ezekiel's the boss now, we're just gonna follow it. That I would understand, because it's like this is almost like a Deep Space Nine situation, drama in a base. Like there's no big characters there, but this is different. And it seems that a lot of people aren't too interested. So before we go into the episode, I just want to ask you guys on the panel, like, what do you think, Rich? What do you think is going on with this? You think that people just aren't aware of it? It was poor promoting on AMC's part? Or do you think just that there's like a fatigue going on with Walking Dead and all this stuff? Like, I don't need another spinoff. What do you think?
Well, I personally think it is the recycled storyline of the tension between Negan and Maggie. You know, I thought that they dealt with all of the stuff they had to deal with in the final season of The Walking Dead, but they decided, no, we need to bring them back together. And of course, this time, let's make Herschel the focal point of this, because Maggie needs Negan's help to free her son. I understand the logic of that, but I think some people are tired of seeing them go back and forth. And even in this episode, when we get into the review, Maggie's still angry at Negan. There's going to be some issues between those two, I would imagine, before the season is over.
And the same for you, Carlos. What do you think?
I don't think there's, at least, I don't know if you're talking about fatigue from when the original Walking Dead proper came out, or whichever one of the spin-offs. I mean, if you're talking about just between Fear the Walking Dead and Dead City, I don't think there is any fatigue. I saw somewhere earlier that the premiere episode is the highest rated AMC Plus show ever since AMC Plus launched. So,
which is interesting because you would think that it would have been the series finale for Walking Dead proper. And
I would like to respond to what Carlos said. I also saw that article, but my question to you, Carlos, as well as the listeners, what the hell else is on AMC Plus? There's no other show out, so of course people are like, "Hey, I got this subscription. I'm gonna go ahead and watch this because there's nothing else on there."
Well, I don't think it's come out yet. Dark Winds is really good with the Native American, the tribe, and all that. That season 2 is coming back.
Okay.
Gangs of London, that was pretty good. That's finished now, at least for the 2 seasons. I mean, there's some stuff, and they had the tie-in with Shudder. So there's some stuff. I understand that, but the question is, what's the numbers really like? Yes, okay, it's the highest compared to what? you know what I mean? If it's like, oh, that's better than the 50 that we got last time. You got 60.
You guys bring up a good point, and Rich brings up a good point. It's like there's not as much. I mean, Breaking Bad isn't on this. Mad Men isn't on this. Like, when they were in the height of their powers. But I will say, during AMC Plus, I think it launched in 2020. We've gotten The Walking Dead proper. We've gotten World Beyond. We've gotten Fear the Walking Dead. We've gotten Tales of the Walking Dead, and now we have The Walking Dead: Dead City. And Dead City is the best in terms of season premieres or series premieres between all of those series. So if we're saying,
so that's their wording then, because it's key. So it's the best premiere. So it's not like the best.
Well, it's the biggest season premiere out of any show, out of any AMC show that's been on.
Yeah, and so there we go. So we can't count Walking Dead proper and stuff because there was no AMC Plus at the time.
I understand exactly what you're saying, Carlos. Let's see if those numbers maintain throughout the entirety of the season, because obviously people were interested in the show. That's probably why they're checking it out. But also, that's the only new thing that's on AMC Plus. That's the point I was making earlier, is that there's other stuff on there, but this is the new stuff on there. So obviously people are going to be interested.
Have you watched oh man, it's not the Breaking Bad, not the Better Call Saul, the other one that's with the same actor. I'm blanking on his name now.
I haven't watched that show at all.
It's a comedy, right?
Yeah, it is a comedy.
That's all I know. It's a comedy.
And the actor that plays Gus has a show as well that's coming, but I don't know when that show is coming because it's in development.
Okay,
some other show.
All right, so they got some stuff coming out. Well, I mean, hopefully it's one of those things of word of mouth, because the problem is Fear has been just horrible. This is their final season, and every episode has just been dragging, and now it's in the mid-season. If you don't know much about that, we do a rundown of the mid-season review if you want to go back on that. But it's been pretty bad, and when you then try to follow up, and we've seen this happen in other mediums, and what comes to mind right off the bat is like with video games, like with the Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy, and how that followed Avengers. The Avengers was horrible because of all the microtransactions and all that stuff. Then Guardians shows up, and people see, oh, Square Enix same developer, oh, it's going to be just as bad. No, it's completely different. It doesn't have no. I got burned already. I'm not. And my concern is that when you have this show following what's going on with Fear, and how that's just turned off so many people that were fans of the show and just of the franchise. Like, would they come back for something like this? Do they think, oh, it's the same showrunners, which is not. It's not at all. But would it turn them off? So we'll find out, because they said that was the AMC Plus numbers. I haven't seen the ratings for AMC proper, just a TV channel, to see how that's doing. But overall, just engagement, a lot of the same sites and forums, and then I jump in. It's like no one really cares. Like they're just not enthusiastic about this, and funny because they're more excited. Like, well, where's the Rick and Michonne? It's like, when is that coming? I'm like, don't even think about that. Don't even think about that, because it's so early on. They're still writing the script out from the last that I heard. No, that's not a thing. I mean, what do we have next? We have the Norman Reedus one next. That one's finished. and that takes place in Paris. So, but anyway, let's see where it goes. And speaking of that, let's just get into this. This is episode 2. Who's there? Remember, there's only 6 episodes in this first season for Dead City, so it's pretty short. And this is one of those things. I think it's like, hey, we're gonna spit this out, see what happens, see the interest. If there is an interest, then they come back. And Jeffrey D. Morgan, I pretty much said that in the interview that he would love to come back. And for him to say that, I'm sure that means that it was implied that if it does kick off and it picks up some steam, there's a possibility of it coming back with a full season. And then there you go. Then we have officially a new spinoff, which is something AMC was trying to do with Tales of the Walking Dead, World Beyond. I mean, they're throwing stuff out there. Got to give them credit for that. But it's just none of it sticking. None of it's of good. So here we go. This episode starts off with the worst trope that we've talked about in Fear, where a lot of stuff happens off camera and you feel like you've missed something and you haven't, because they just decided just to cut that part out. And so we have Maggie and Negan chasing an old lady that they call the Pigeon Lady. She stole Maggie's bag, and they're running through a building and all this stuff. And then we instantly started thinking, like, what did we miss? This is the second episode. I didn't see this at the end of first episode. Well, that's it. We don't know how it happened. They never bring it up. It just happens. Go ahead.
Well, we did see the old lady at the end of the premiere episode, so we assume this is a continuation.
Oh yeah, but we didn't see her grab the bag.
Yeah,
like we just saw her as, like, hanging about. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, how did she get close enough to them to do this? Yeah, and then go running off. But whatever, it happened. We see her use the zip line again. That's their way of navigating around. We find out that it's from this crew. The tribal people are how they're referred to, right? The tribe. She zips across to one of the other buildings, but then she's nice enough. She sends it back so that way they can zip across, because at this point, of course, there's some walkers after them, and they throw some tension. Negan gets over. Maggie tries to get over. It doesn't really kick off well, so she's sort of like stuck right in the middle, and she's like shimmying across. It eventually makes it. It's not a big deal. They get to the old lady. Lady's talking in another language. They don't really understand her. Negan's the one really interacting with her, and he offers to do a trade. Now, this is where the show starts story-wise, with the script falling apart for me, because at this point, Maggie's just screaming, like, get us there to the smoke build. We need to go there, right? Because he's trying to get to Croat. That's it, right? The whole goal of this is to get to Croat. Remember that. It's to get Herschel back, who was kidnapped. So she's pointing, and then the lady's like, no, you can't go there. You can't go there, right? We want to take them somewhere else. They go somewhere else. And then they meet another group of people, and there was this whole little altercation. And this is the part that makes no sense, because when it's just verbal altercation, they're asking questions. What are you doing here? Was he pointing a drill? One of the guys, Tommaso, I think that was his name. Was he pointing a drill? It definitely wasn't a gun, but he was pointing something at Negan. But then out of nowhere, Maggie comes up with this whole story. Oh, we're on a boat on our way to Canada, and then it like crashed, and we're here. And why? Like, the whole point is to find Croat. You know where that building is. Smoke to find shit. You ask the crazy lady, right? But you're not going to ask the somewhat sane people that you can communicate with. You know, say, hey, but by the way, you know what? We asked her, but she's talking gibberish. Listen, we just want to get over there. Tell them what's going on. No, she makes up a whole story, and what happens? They don't trust them. They think they're part of that Croat group, the brothers or whatever, and puts them in a battle, like locks them away. So before I go any further, that was a big part of this episode for the setup, introducing us to this tribal group. And also, what did you make of that? When 1 minute she's telling the older lady, hey, get us there, we need to go there, and then the next minute lying to these people with some bogus story.
I didn't have as big of an issue as you did with that. With the pigeon lady, she did seem kind of out of it and by herself. So I guess they thought she probably meant no harm. I mean, even Negan said it's like, oh, she's not gonna do anything to us.
Yeah, she traded with them, but that's what I'm saying. It's like if
Give her a pigeon.
yeah, there you go. But why say, all right, listen, get us to that building, and when you know she's a little whatever, a little wackadoodle. But then when you have these semi-sane people asking questions, like, hey, what are you doing here? Are you spies? You with the? These are the people that you say, listen, we're not with those, but we need to get to that building. Go for it.
Well, I know the reason why, but Carlos, go ahead and finish your statement first.
Yeah. So real quick, the whole thing with Maggie, I kind of understand. I mean, obviously the other dudes were holding up guns, so you know you're a little bit more defensive in that way. But even if her like the whole issue was her actual story, like I didn't see an issue with her making stuff up. It's just the fact that she's like, oh, we're going to Canada. It's like, why the hell did you go to Manhattan? But yeah, but and I do appreciate that Negan tells her in the bathroom scene saying, hey, I could smell I can smell shit from your story from a mile away. I forgot exactly what he said, but
yeah, it was like it smells worse than like this. What's in the bathroom? Because they were like locked in the bathroom. Like, what made you come up with that? It's like,
yeah. So I appreciated that scene because Negan kind of said what we were all thinking.
That what you just said, Carlos, that is exactly why she came up with that story, because they have to again emphasize that she doesn't fully trust Negan, and they're gonna butt heads in terms of how they deal with this situation. She's coming into this already. She wants to come up with her own way how to handle this situation when Negan is telling her just tell them the truth. So I think this is used to further their conflict between each other, because that's the whole reason why he scolds her later and says you should have just told him the truth and used them as a resource.
Well, he even said it. You got to give a little and get a little. And it's like, this is it. Yeah. This is their turf. All right, let's just see. Clearly, they are not part of that group.
But I will say that you have to compare and contrast the situation that Maggie's in as opposed to Negan. Negan is thinking more clearly because he obviously does not see Maggie as a threat, while Maggie sees both Negan and the crew as a threat. So I think it's a lot harder in her position to sort of just be honest when she doesn't trust not only the people pointing guns at her, but also the person that she has to rely on.
And we'll just get this part out of the way because it was really short. But one thing I did like about this episode is that it just was showing us what's going on with all these characters. You know, we'll get to what's going on with the marshal, but what was it? Jan, right? The girl that was with, that's her name? I think it's Jan.
Jenny.
Right? Jenny, sorry. I knew it was someone with a J. I should have just pulled up the IMDb. So many characters, new characters. So
this episode.
We see that she made it to Hilltop. She's introduced to the class by the teacher, and they said that she's from Oceanside, which I found interesting. So they made up a fake location. Well, we know where Oceanside is, but clearly that's not where she was with Negan. But whatever, she's there, and I was like, oh, well, maybe she'll talk. She's giving little smiles now. She looks like she's happy to be there around people, right? Especially kids her own age. And she sits down in the room, and I'm like, okay, now what's going to happen? Oh, nothing. That's it. We're done. That's it for her. It was more like just to let us know she made it. And I'm sure we'll find out more later, but go ahead, Rich.
So let me just respond to that right now, because I mean, the conversation that Negan had with Maggie in this episode, for me, I think that pretty much foreshadowed exactly what we can expect for the rest of the season. Because when he went into the backstory about the Croat, and the fact
once we get there, we're gonna get there. We get there.
No, but this is connected, so I got to finish this. Okay. When he mentions that the Croat killed the kid, right? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that Jenny is going to try to escape and try to find Negan, and then she's going to end up getting caught by the Croat, and it's going to be once again revisiting this situation of the Croat trying to kill somebody that Negan is close to, and that's why I say that's the foreshadowing of what's going to happen, because right as soon as he said the story, I said, oh, so this is where they're headed. I like to be wrong, but I don't know about that.
I'll take that, and I'll just reverse it. that she's not going there, but he's going to Hilltop. Because how is she going to travel from Hilltop, Georgia, whatever, right? They're up there, to Manhattan. She needs a boat. She needs a ride and then a boat. But we know that he knows, Croat knows that they are, because he's been raiding them and he kidnapped Herschel. So maybe that's it. He goes there, he grabs her and brings her back. And it's like, look what I got. So, yeah, but either way, it ends up with her being a part of it and a focal point. So that could be it. That could be it. But I just wanted to get that little flash thing there. That's done. So we don't have to talk about that. There was another part also, which was a quick flashback where we see it's back at the Hilltop. It's with Maggie talking to Herschel and saying, hey, you didn't do your weapons training, and he's just brushing it off. He doesn't want to do any of that stuff. He wants to draw pictures or whatever. He just doesn't care. He's got an attitude. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Something's up. I don't want to hear, well, his dad died. He didn't know his dad. That can't apply here. Okay, it's not like he witnessed it, right? No. He wasn't even born yet. So something else is bothering him, which I'm sure we'll find out. Go ahead.
By the way, I want to say this, and we'll get Carlos's opinion. I didn't really give a damn about that flashback, the same way that, obviously he didn't really care about his weapons training, because I figured to myself, why is this important to the story right now? Are you trying to say that they have a little bit of tension as, son and mom? I mean, I didn't get that. So I want to see where they're going with that, but I didn't see how that was important to the story whatsoever.
I think it's going to be important if we find out that there was another connection between Croat and Herschel. Like maybe there was we don't really they didn't go into it too much in the first episode of how did the Croat know about Hilltop, and what, you know what I mean? Out of all the other communities, we got Babylon. I'm sure there's a few other ones. If he's running Manhattan,
I had to cut you off because I think you guys are coming to the same conclusion that I came up with during this episode. Who hates Negan?
Who hates Negan? Besides Maggie?
The Croat hates Negan.
Well,
the Croat hates Negan, and Negan went over the story why he hates him.
Well, we'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. But all right,
who else hates Negan? Who pointed a gun at him in the last season of The Walking Dead proper?
Well, Herschel.
There you go.
But Herschel doesn't know about the whole Negan thing. Like, you're saying that you're thinking that he has this chip on his shoulder because of this, that he's still upset because they did a time jump. Clearly, this is an older version of Herschel from when younger Herschel pointed the gun at Negan's head.
Well, yeah, to go to what Carlos said, though, he does know because the Croat told him, was talking with Herschel about Negan.
But I'm talking about like from the flashback with Maggie and son, and him with the chip on his shoulder, not wanting to do weapons training and all that stuff, and being bitter about something bothering him. I don't think it's because he wished for all those other years. It's clearly at least 5-6 years have passed. He's a little older now, that he's still wishing that he killed Negan when he had the chance. I don't believe that. It's got to be something else going on, and I'm sure they'll tell us.
I just find it interesting that the Croat would mention Negan to Herschel when they just picked him off of a random hilltop in Georgia. The hilltop is not anywhere near the sanctuary.
Well, I thought the reason we discussed it that he had a scout that saw Maggie and I guess describes Negan because he didn't have a camera, and that's how the Croat knows that Negan is with Maggie, and then brought that up to Herschel. It's like, oh, all right. Well, I see your mom is around here, and with Negan.
We'll see in the future episodes, but it just seems a little bit too coincidental that someone went all the way from Manhattan to the hilltop to steal a kid.
And
so you're thinking it was intentional to lure Negan.
And his name is not Padre.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah. So well, I think you make a good point, Carlos, and I would also add on to that. I think it's also very convenient that the Croat somehow knows about the history between Maggie and Negan. The fact that Herschel, I think so they have to explain that because he shouldn't know all that stuff about what happened with them. So that's
so you know what? Let's just get into that part. That was a key part of it, was the conversation, because there was a lot of jumps back and forth to all these different scenes, and then we were back with Maggie and Negan in the bathroom, and then that's when Negan tells the story of how he met the Croat. Croat reached out to their group. He needed a family, felt close to Negan. After a while, everything was great. He was a good soldier. They found a young girl. Negan thought that she's just some girl. It's nothing. There's no threat, and they were going to let her go back to her community. But Croat was like, no, and he interrogated her, and whether it's by force or not, but she said that she admits she was a scout from her group and this whole thing. And the Croat did some bad things to her. He didn't go into details. He made all the gestures and the facial things like it's like, so we could just use our imagination. He did some horrible things to her. And that's when Negan realized that this was a really bad guy. And then she was like, oh, it takes a bad guy to make it. He's like, no. I did what I did because I had to, just show face in front of the group, put on a show. But no. I never did what this guy was doing and what he was capable of. And I call BS on that too, because remember, the reason why Dwight has a burnt face is because he stepped up to Negan, because Negan took his wife when he was claiming wives. And so he put his face to the fire, burned it. And what was that for? I mean, they don't bring that part up because they obviously want to show a different light with Negan. But Negan has done some bad things that wasn't about showing face. It was just for his own personal gain. But anyway, the point is that he says he realized he had to put this guy down, and he only got one shot at him, literally one shot. It was with a bullet, and he shot off his ear. And then the guy ran off, and that was it. And so now he knows where he went. He went to New York and clearly created a whole new community. So right there, that's the story. Now, that's the story here. So you're thinking that somehow this is a full circle, that Croat realized or found out that Maggie knows Negan, figured, well, how can I get Negan? Let me kidnap Herschel. Then when Maggie finds out that I have him, then I don't know how she figured out that, because of the whistle, right? That special whistle. But how did he know that was going to trigger? Because what if she didn't remember that Negan had the whistle? But regardless, and then that triggered her to go find Negan to then help her talk to or find Croat. And that was the end game for Croat, so that way he can get Negan and finally kill Negan. Is that what you're saying, Carlos? Oh, Carlos. All right, Rich. Is that what he's saying?
Well, hold on. I think Carlos is there now. Go ahead, Carlos.
Oh no, go ahead, Rich. I didn't catch. I didn't catch the extent of the question.
All right. Well, go ahead and ask the question again, Adam.
All right. Yeah. Real quick. So now that we did because we just went over the whole little backstory of the story that Negan said about the Croat shooting the ear and all that stuff. So are you saying now that the Croat, somewhere along the lines, when he was going back and forth raiding Maggie, realized that she knew Negan at some point, whether it was from the whistle, whatever it was, so then decided to kidnap Herschel, knowing that if Maggie wanted to get to him, she would need help, and she would need help from someone that knows him, so then hopefully find Negan and then bring Negan to Manhattan, so that way Croat can kill Negan, because that was his end game.
It's very plausible. I don't know if it's that sophisticated. I don't know if the Croat is that sophisticated. But I feel like the way that the Croat and Herschel linked up somehow has to do with their hatred for Negan. I don't know. And Maggie and Herschel are going through their tough times in the flashback. We saw their tension. So my guess, and this is just me putting the tinfoil hat, Miss Cleo scene, checking into the future. My guess is the Croat is going to give Herschel the ability to kill Negan. He's going to be like, "Here, kid, kill him. And then Maggie is going to stop Herschel, and Herschel's going to be, what the hell? You've hated this guy almost your whole life. But I don't know. That's just how I feel like it's going to go. It'll be interesting to see if they take it that direction or a different one. But just going back to your original question, Adam, I think it's somehow they linked up Herschel and the Croat somehow linked up and somehow found out about Negan, their hatred for Negan, and I don't know.
It brings up so many other questions, because now I'm thinking that if that's the process, if that's how they're saying the story went down, then that means that Croat was still part of Negan's crew when Negan killed his dad, when he killed Herschel's father. So if that's that's the thing. Like, if that's the case, then that means
I'll go ahead, Rich.
That is the problem with introducing this character, because you say he has a past with Negan, but we've never seen this character on any of the Walking Dead show. So that's why I said this is a major plot hole that they have to explain, how he knows this connection between Maggie and Negan. So I'm expecting them to explain that, because if they don't,
I think that was it, man. I think that bathroom scene was it, because he said from beginning to end, he was like, hey, he showed up this way, and then I saw what he did. I had to put him down. I missed, and he ran off. So my thing is, and did that happen? Because if he knows that Maggie's husband died and that's Herschel's father and the whole thing, if he knows, that means he was there during that time, during that feud with Alexandria and Rick Grimes and McKinney, all that was going on. Because remember, they said he brought up the Kingdom, that they were feuding, and this happened before he met the Rick Grimes crew and all stuff. They were feuding with the Kingdom, and that's when that one girl came along. So if that happened prior to the incident, then how does he know about the incident? You know what I mean? Like, how do you know that this is the kid from the father who Negan bashed in the head? And it's like, unless there's a lot of story that needs to be flushed out with their connections. I don't know. I mean, it's still kind of baffling with the whole trip to Manhattan, going to Hilltop for what? For raiding? That is pretty far. That is a far raid.
So we'll see what happens. I will not say that they can find some way to do a flashback to show you that he was a part of Negan's crew back then. They could still do that if they want to.
I thought they were going to do that in that bathroom. I thought that's what we were going to get in the bathroom, like, just quick flashes or something. But
we'll see.
We'll see. All right. And you know what? And before, because the main focus of all this will just be on the Negan and that whole part. So let's just get the Marshall's part also, because that was pretty short. He dragged it out a little bit, but it's pretty short. Is that 1 minute we see that he gets up and he's still in that room that they left him in, full of walkers and all that stuff, and we see his deputy is now walking, or whole thing. But in Fear of the Walking Dead fashion, we don't see how he escapes that situation. We don't see the conflict, whether he fought them off, whatever he did. It looked like that was going to be the next scene, right? That we're going to go back to him. We're going to see him fight his way out or come up with something. No, we don't see that. Next thing you know, it's broad daylight. He's out walking in the street, and he's close to his family's house. He gets to the apartment through the fire escape. We know it's family's house because you see a picture. He's looking for a weapon. There's some walkers inside. We saw a bloodbath. It was sad. But now we know he's from Manhattan. It's like, okay, that's what's going on. And then he leaves. And as soon as he leaves, he's walking and he gets caught up in a trap that pulls him up, a typical animal type trap. And next, he's hanging up, and this trap. And because I want to fast just his whole story arc. Now it's at night. There's all these walkers underneath. We see the brothers, the main villain dude. So many characters now. I'm blanking on this dude's name. I gotta start writing all of them down, because I didn't have to write it down for the other ones because I knew everybody's names. The Croat, and he shows up, and they're all these helmet dudes. What was it that you called them, Master Chiefs, Carlos? because it looks like motorcycle helmets, but they got the spikes, and we find out that the spikes are so that way they can just headbutt the walkers and kill them instantly, which kind of makes sense because we know, straight to the head, right? That's how you stop them. So okay, I'll go with that idea.
Look a little like Little Master Chiefs.
Yeah, little Master Chiefs, right? So they kill all the walkers, and the sort of the big Korai comes and he grabs them, and he can clearly see there's a badge and everything on him, but he says, "Hey, don't worry, you're safe." He caught him. That's it. He's got the sheriff, and that's it for his part. So we don't have to focus it. Now we can just focus on the meat and potatoes, and that was with the Maggie and Negan. So they get out of the bathroom, and we see Tommaso and another woman and a few other people that are there. And again, they don't trust them, and Negan's trying to explain the situation because we hear now the building is 2 stories. I wish they showed the outside. It looked like, what did it look like? It looked like a bank, right?
It could have been anything really, but yeah, I mean, it could have been like one of those, pre-war banks.
Yeah, it was definitely looked like some kind of business was downstairs. So this is what I'm trying to get, because it wasn't an apartment building. They were in an office.
It looked like the beginning of the Dark Knight could have taken, where the Joker could have taken in that place.
Oh yeah. So we'll say that's what it is. And he's trying to explain the situation, and it's not working. Tommaso is like just getting all loud at him, and then next Negan quickly grabs him, so points to like this little makeshift shiv that he said he's been working on. It's really nice and sharp, and the whole thing, wants to stick it in his jugular or whatever, but he doesn't. He lets him go. He says, "See, that's not what I'm about. I'm here to help you. We're got the same common enemy over here." Now, I don't remember. I don't think it was this part where she mentioned that finally Maggie fesses up. No, it's not this part. It's not this part. So they go walking down the hallway because there's all this commotion. Obviously, it's the Croats people with their helmets and stuff. They found out where the tribal people are living or were hiding out. And one of the guys comes in the hallway, kills one of the tribe people, but then they kill him. That's when we first get that introduction scene, and you start calling him like the Master Chief because of the helmet's like, what the hell is this? But he takes the helmet off, the dude, Negan does, grabs him, and then this is where it gets entertaining because we see the Negan, not of old, but the Negan of the comics, because that's the key right there. This whole thing with the knock knock, it's very much a reference to Negan in the comics. He was always known for saying really mean, horrible jokes, real raunchy ones too, but he was ruthless, and he would do some ruthless things, and would do it with a smile. And so all these guys come rushing in downstairs, which looks like a bank. And then we hear knock, knock, and we see Negan smashing this dude's head through windows, one after another. It goes through like 3 windows. Right? Yeah, it's funny. And then he comes up with the, knock, knock, and he's like, who's there? He says, "It Butter." And he's like, "You better get this umbrella," or something like that. And he slices the guy's throat, like all this blood. He's like, "It's raining," and he's pouring all the blood on him. And the people, the guys down there, like freaked out, like, what's going on? And he's like, "If I even see a mole hair from one of you guys, this will be you." And the whole thing. And then he takes the body, chucks it over, and it falls down the stairs and the whole thing. And I liked that scene, but then I was still kind of confused by the scene. So the guys know where they live, or they knew that they're hiding out there. Okay, you killed one of them, and then they just left
the pigeon lady.
Oh yeah, well the pigeon lady died, but she died before.
Man, that was sad. I
That
think
was
her name was
that was right. That was it. That was that was the person that got killed that I had just mentioned. That was the pigeon lady, and that was the dude that they took off the helmet, because there was 2 people that got killed, right? There was one person that got killed, then the pigeon lady. Yeah, well, they went into the room, and then the guy had the pigeon lady. Negan was trying to talk the guy down, but he wasn't having it, and he still killed her. And then that's when Negan went ham on him, which makes sense too, because Negan liked the pigeon lady. Yeah. And so and that's pretty much it. And that was a group. And that was the part that they were talking. Tommaso was just finally, no surprise, fessed up to Negan. It's like, "Yeah, well, this is all we have. We don't have thousands of people or 100. No surprise." And that's also when Maggie starts talking about, well, what reason what I'm here for is for Croat. He took my kid, and that's why I need to go over there. Because Tommaso was like, well, your boat to Canada is probably at the bottom of the Hudson there, because the Croat, he doesn't let anybody leave. But the sad part, and what also upset me, is that once Maggie did mention, I was like, oh, well, this is the truth. Then the woman's like, oh, you should have just said it. It's like, we know how to get there, and the whole thing. It's like, yeah, you should have, instead of making this whole big lie, because then you would have found out that these people are clearly were not connected, but have a gripe with those guys. And this is a feud. Now, I hope there's more groups of people that we find, because if this is it, this is pretty bad. I don't think they're gonna. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think there's any more groups. I think this little family that Negan and Maggie are now working with, I think the majority of those characters will get killed off, because again, this is between Maggie and the Croat and Negan. So that's how this ends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I just want to make a comment and say the Negan torture scene of the guy, in my opinion, that was the best thing about this episode. Everything else is like, yeah, whatever.
Preach.
Yeah. That was the best thing about it, because it also now creates this whole dynamic of Maggie. Once again, I don't know if I could trust Negan. He's very crazy, and this is the same Negan that killed Glenn. So, yeah.
Yeah, and she keeps staring at him. First, she was shaking when she saw the whole thing with the pigeon lady. It was weird for her to show that, because remember, we know her from Walking Dead proper. The last season, she was ruthless. Remember, she had a group. She had Snake Eyes with her. She was running and killing everybody. She was fighting, doing all this stuff. And even at the beginning of the first episode of this show, killing the walker, bashing its head in. But then here, she just like froze. And you see her like she was quivering and stuff. And then when she saw what happened with Negan after he did the whole little speech and the killing and dumping, and then he looked over at her, and she just also looks terrified of him. And I was like, I don't understand where they're going with this character. It's like, make up your mind. You want it where it's constantly going to be, I hate you, but I'm tough and I'm my own person now. I'm just a ruthless person. And then the next minute, it's like, oh my God, I'm scared. I just saw this person kill this other lady, and then now I see what you're doing. I don't know what to do. I don't trust anybody. It doesn't play off well. I don't like the flip-flopping with Maggie. And at that point, I sort of wished that she wasn't involved with the show. If it was just Negan, if it was just one of those things, this is what I had hoped for. And we had talked about this before this show started. One of the things I wish it would have been is like Negan was still part of the group. And then something happened to Herschel, or he came back and she said, I need your help. And he's like, all right, I got this. And then he goes on his own and he deals with all of this. We don't need Maggie on this journey, is my point. And this also proved it for me. I'm just not interested in her whole thing, because, again, she doesn't trust him. Meanwhile, we thought they squashed all that at the end of Walking Dead. Clearly we haven't, and they keep rehashing it, like you mentioned, Rich. The story's still rehashed. Oh, I don't trust you. Oh, I'll never forgive you. Oh, Stop already. It's years and years have passed. And yet, if you don't want to forgive somebody, then you don't bring them. Don't get involved. Figure out another way. Don't do this. This is just it's a tired trope. I'm tired of it. So that's it. But like, to your point, yeah, this was the highlight. Just seeing the return of Negan. I don't know. I was wondering at first. I thought maybe he was gonna find a bat, like he was gonna ask Tommaso. He's like, "Hey, you have a weapon?" He's like, "Just this bat," And then he's like, and then maybe he does something. Well, and who knows? Maybe eventually they'll find like a Modell's, a sporting goods store, and we're like, that's the only weapon I need. But yeah, the episode was okay. It was a lot of setup. Before I get into it, Carlos, what did you think of that? Because we already know Rich enjoyed it. That was the highlight for you. What was your highlight?
Oh, it's a concurrence with everyone in this room. Yeah, seeing Negan back gave me those old Negan vibes. So I appreciate, as a show called I Am Negan, I think we all appreciate when we get to see Negan with Lucille sort of, that swagger back. So yeah, I really enjoyed that scene. I do agree with the whole Maggie stuff. Although this is sort of the type of moment where we can kind of understand why Maggie kind of feels the way she does, as opposed to every other scene where Negan is acting like a sad puppy, and then she still is like, "I want to kill you," and it's like, all right, it's been 10 years, and you guys have been essentially with each other for most of it. So,
but what was fitting with all this is that when he told the story in the bathroom about putting on a show, right? That's the show. He's a leader and put on the show in the whole good faith, and that's why he did what he did with Glenn and all that stuff. He does the same here because that was all very showmanship with the joke, the gutting, the blood. It's like, oh my god, look what you did! Well, but now that crew, they believe him. They trust him now.
And she saw, she saw that the thing that triggered him to be like that was the pigeon lady. It's like they lost one of their own. He felt it, and now he has to be ruthless. Yep. So hopefully,
remember what Rick and Glenn and them did, killing all those people part of the group.
The outpost.
Yeah, and the outpost. And that's what it was. It was like, hey, you did this. Now we're going to do something back to you. Nothing personal.
So hopefully, hopefully this doesn't only trigger her past memories and trauma. Hopefully this also kind of shows her it's like, like when Negan said earlier in the same season, it's like we're all bad people. We're the people killing our people just bring out the worst in us. So
yeah, they just have to move on from that. I really thought that when we saw that from the last season and when they had that heart to heart, I was like, this is it. It's done. Just squash it. And no, it's still going. And it's kind of sad because this would be the best time for them to just a buddy system. I was like, all right, this guy. I could fight. I was like, all right, great. We're going to work things out. We're going to do this. This is going to be great. No, and instead they still have that conflict. And I think the show doesn't need it. These characters don't need it. We don't need that anymore. That's done with. Now we just need two friends working together to save a loved one that they both care about. He cares about Herschel. He cares about all those kids in that community. Remember, he saved Herschel. He protected Herschel. So I don't know. Hopefully this is it. Hopefully this was that turning point, but I don't know. It's hard to read the way the actress was showing that shock and fear. It's like shock and fear is like, was this a flashback? Like she saw his face and saw what he did, and then just brought back everything with Glenn, or get understanding like, oh, I get why that was kind of gruesome, but you didn't do it because you're just ruthless. You did it to scare those guys. And also to show our community that you can lead by doing something so horrific. And clearly it worked because those guys did not come running up the stairs or anything. They went running out the door. They left. So it worked out. It worked out. But it's a shame, Rich, if you're right, that this is it, that we're not going to see on any other group. I don't know why. A part of me feels like, I guess because it's a city. It's a big city. There should be other little pockets, and maybe that's a possibility for a full season if this actually happens. But if not, what do we have? We have Tommaso. We have the girl that's with him, and I think that's it now. Right? Is there anybody else?
There are other people in their group that we saw glimpses of that are still alive.
Okay, in the background. That's right. They didn't have speaking roles. That was just background.
Yeah, the only one that looks prominent is the black guy in the group. Tommaso, the girl, the black guy, and the rest of the crew, I think, are just going to be background characters.
And by the way, that black guy will get killed. I'll tell you right now, he will get killed. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, boy.
Did you see and I mentioned when we were watching when Negan comes back, he gives him the nod, the nod is like, I see you.
Yeah.
So shout out to that dude. I think he's gonna have a bigger role in the next coming episodes because he was, he didn't talk much, but he looked like Like he was part of the scene. Like he's like,
well,
oh,
yeah,
Yeah,
he can fight. He can fight. He's ready. He's ready to do this. He was the muscle.
He is the muscle, and for that reason, eventually he will get killed because they already have Frank Ocean is the character that will survive, obviously, right?
oh
I don't think they're gonna have all these. They're not gonna have all these people of the color survive. I'm just saying. This is this is what I see.
Hey, Snake Eyes survived. Walking Dead
Oh, yeah.
proper. And so we'll see.
We'll see.
All right. So overall, it wasn't a bad episode. We'll just get into it. I don't think it was a bad episode. I'm just not sold on the writing for Maggie's character, but everything else, let's see. I'm still open to it. It's still fresh. They threw in a lot of stuff like setting up what was going on at Hilltop with the girl, and now we see that the marshal is now with a Croat. All right, I'm sure he'll either get tortured or something's going to happen there. And we have a crew that's with Maggie and Negan, and they, at least according to the girl, said they're going to help him. They're going to help him get to Croat, and we'll see what happens there. So it was okay for me. All right, in closing, Rich, was it all right for you? What do you think?
I mean, I think the show was okay. I mean, like I said, the scene with Negan, that was the only real highlight for me this week. But the show was definitely still better than Fear the Walking Dead. So I will give them a pass for that. But we'll see what happens. But I just don't want it to be predictable as far as what's happening, because they can fall into that territory depending on how they tell the rest of the story. But overall, an okay episode. We'll see what happens next week.
Yeah. Carlos?
Yeah, I felt, this wasn't, I didn't feel like this was better than the first episode. It was a decent episode. Getting Negan to be back to his old ways, showing that the signs of the Negan from Sanctuary it was a pretty good sight to see. Looking forward to the next episode, because it looked like there was like an octagon looking kind of thing where the marshal's getting sent to, so we'll see what happens there.
I don't know about that, because even before they showed all kinds of craziness, remember, and none of that came to pass in this episode.
Well, we'll see. But as far as this episode, it was okay. I didn't have too many issues with it. I didn't have as many issues as I think Adam did, but
not too much. My issue is just Maggie, just the character is just not being consistent with just her approach to things, and then just I don't know, just all of it. It's just not working for me. I hopefully that gets moved out, and I just want her to just give like a bro pound with them. Like, all right, I see you. Let's work together. The past is the past. This is the present. Let's save my son. Let's do it. Yeah, and then that's it. Bad dudes.
I mean, this episode we were introduced to the Pigeon Lady, and in this episode we said farewell to the Pigeon Lady. So shout out to her. I like the character.
That's also a callback to just Walking Dead proper. Remember, almost every episode would have somebody that we would get introduced to, and then they would die by the end of the episode. I was like, oh wow, look, it's great, and it just kill them off. We saw that in the first episode, introduced to the deputy, and like we told like, oh, this is gonna be that guy. It's gonna be oh no, he's dead. It's like, oh well, here we go, and that's fine. You gotta have some casualties. Not everybody could survive. And it wouldn't be that much of a show, right? It's Walking Dead. All right, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, of course, the Koalition with the K. That's our main mother base site. And we will be back for episode 3. And yes, Fear is still on that break. It just started. But if you're wondering, like, oh, is there another? No, that was it. That was their mid-season. And I think they come back after all this happened. I gotta look at the date because they had changed all their dates. They sent an email with dates and then some new dates. And I think I'm not even sure if I think the Daryl show comes back before Fear comes back. Because if I remember right, I think Fear comes either toward the end of this year or next year. Something. It's some crazy time in between. But whatever. Who cares? I can't see how they save that show. at this point. It's just its final season. The story arc is just not interesting at all. But Dead City is interesting if done right, and so far it's pulling it. It's pulling it. So all right, we'll be back for episode 3 next week. Peace, everybody.
Peace.